Welcome to part 6. In part 6, we will look at three types of demands: inelastic, elastic, perfectly inelastic, and then see how they respond to different types of revenue generations due to the changes in price. So let's go to the screen sharing. Okay, now let's look at the demand curve on the left panel. We're seeing that it's written relatively inelastic demand. Forget the word relative. What does inelastic demand mean? Inelastic means that the ratio is less than 1. Inelastic means when the ratio is less than 1, it does not respond to price change. The quantity demanded does not respond to price change, or it responds less. Now, look at the price over here. The price is increasing from P1 to P2. So naturally, by the law of demand, quantity demanded will reduce from Q1 to Q2. Note what I'm going to say right now. If the two units on x-axis and the y-axis are same or relatively comparable, then what we see is, although the price has increased by this much, the response in demand is less than the price change. So prices increased by say 5%. Some people have reduced their consumption, and that reduction is now 3%. Price goes up 5%, quantity demanded responds by 3%. So what happens to the revenue? Revenue will fall. Whatever revenue we saw before, we see less revenue now. How can we show this? Before the price change, this was our revenue. After the price change, this is our revenue. Okay, so although a price has increased by 5%, but quantity demanded has decreased by less than 5%. So the total revenue has increased. Even visually, we see that the new revenue over here is greater than the previous revenue over here. This is the increase in the revenue, this rectangle. This is the decrease in the quantity demanded, this darker shade rectangle. So the increase in the revenue is more than the decrease in the quantity demanded. So ultimately revenue increases. Over here, we are saying in the right panel, we see that the demand over here is written as relatively elastic demand. For example, just like before, let us forget the word relative. Elastic demand, it responds to price change. So what is happening over here? If the price falls by this much, this is the loss in revenue, the dark shaded rectangle. But when price falls, quantity demanded increases. This demand is elastic demand. So if the price fall has been 1%, the response in sales is more than 1%. So whatever loss we have over here in prices for 1%, we regain it in quantity demanded in the lower rectangle over here. So what happens? If demand is relatively elastic and we reduce the price, we can expect revenue to increase. Panel number 2, the right-hand panel. If demand is relatively inelastic, then if we increase the price, we can still expect revenue to increase. The reverse will happen, and that's what we need to know. If we know beforehand that our commodity is relatively elastic, so if we increase the price by 1%, people will reduce their consumption by more than 1%, revenue falls. If we decrease the price by 1% over here, increase in demand will be less than 1%, still revenue will not increase. Was the same thing. Now, this is a perfectly inelastic demand. What does inelastic mean? Inelastic means it does not respond to price. Look at the demand over here. Just look. This is P1. We increase price to P2. People are still buying the same. We increase price from P2 to P3. People are still buying the same. So percentage change in quantity demanded does not respond to percentage change in price. The demand for this particular commodity, in the previous parts, we used the example of an insulin injection, where the demand for an insulin injection does not depend on its price, rather on the medical condition of the of our patient. So what do we have over here? As price is increasing, people are buying the same, so revenue is increasing. So as we move from P1 to P2, this is the increased revenue because it is not responding at all. It is totally inelastic demand. If we increase the price again from P2 to P3, then we see further revenue. So the conclusion that we draw over here is, if our commodity is not responding to price, increasing the price is the clever thing to do. If we do the reverse, the revenue will fall. So we know that if a good is highly insensitive to price changes, increasing the price is the clever thing to do. So now we've come to the end of topic 6. Let us look at topic 7. Up until now, we have said that elasticity of demand, or our responsiveness to demand, depends on the commodity's price. This is true. At the same time, this is partially true. Why is this partially true? Because the demand for Coca-Cola is very much dependent on the demand for of its substitutes. That means, for example, Pepsi. Then in a previous part, we also introduced a concept called switching costs. If I am a Coca-Cola supplier and I decide to increase the price of the Coca-Cola, what will I ask myself? How quickly can people change from Coca-Cola to Pepsi? If the switching cost is very little or time-wise very small, then we can automatically assume that if a substitute is available, number one, and the substitute is a close substitute. Close substitute means it can be accessed very quickly. Then the price of the Coca-Cola increases, people will just automatically switch to Pepsi. So the first factor, apart from price, is how close are two substitutes, how quickly accessible or quickly available are they two. That will depend on how demand will respond. How does your demand respond when substitutes are available, they are accessible, and when they are not available, they cannot access them. For example, there was a time in India when Coca-Cola was not sold in India. The only beverage that was available was Pepsi, the international beverage. They had a local version called Thumbs Up, which they still do. But until I think the 1990s, Coca-Cola could not sell in India. So the only available substitute Pepsi was competing with was Thumbs Up. Now Pepsi competes with another globally international beverage, which is Coke. Okay. Next thing is, how big is the commodity in our total budget? Now, if I go to the superstore just to buy a chewing gum, and that's the only thing I buy throughout the whole month, then I will notice the price of the chewing gum. But if the chewing gum is a part of my weekly groceries, then how big is it in the total budget? A very small amount. For example, I might be buying say 15,000 taka worth of groceries or other food and other items every week. A chewing gum maybe say 50 taka. So that is a very small percentage in the total budget. So if the price of the chewing gum increases by say 10%, I may not notice it because this, yes, the chewing gum is there, okay, but it is a very small percentage in my total budget. So even if it increases by 10%, I still carry on, consuming the same amount as I did last month. How can I use this information? Let me give you an example. If you go to a superstore, just when you check out, you'll find some chewing gums selling. People just grab a chewing gum and put it in the basket. Why? You will never see a very expensive item at the checkout counter. Why? Because the positioning has been done in such a way the people who are selling, they are very much aware that they will be not noticed, and then people will just take it and put it in their basket and buy. Positioning of the good. How can we position the good in such a way that the consumer feels an incentive to buy? This is something that we are going to discuss in the class. Okay, we have already discussed it, two examples over here. Number one, the chewing gum example. Number two, availability and closeness of substitutes. We'll think about other things as well. And once we discuss the positioning of the good, we will be discussing topics outside economics. Time period. What is the time period of adjustment? If it takes a long time to switch from one substitute to another, like we said in the context of Pepsi and Coke, time switching was very small, then people respond in one way. We position a good in one way. If the time period of adjustment is longer, medium run or long run, then we position in another way. Okay. Next, is the good a necessity or a luxury? If it is a necessity, like insulin injection, if it is a necessity like salt, people respond to prices in one way. If it is a luxury, people respond to prices in another way. Another factor is, does the good have multiple uses? For example, we don't buy a good only for one purpose. Sometimes we might buy a good that has more than one use. Okay, so if a good has more than one use to us, then our demand for that good will respond in one way. If it has only one or two uses or just one particular use, our demand will respond in another way. We will be discussing these matters during the class, and we will also be discussing a little homework. When the class starts, we will discuss how the homework will be done. So this is the end of our video lectures for week 4, the end of part